It wasn't even 7 a.m. when 3 squad cars roared down my dirt road, sirens screaming, tires spitting gravel, and lights flashing like a Vegas casino. They boxed in my barn while I stood on the porch in boxers and boots, clutching a half-full coffee mug, wondering if I was still asleep. Then I heard her, Karen, arms flailing at the edge of her lawn, shrieking at the deputies that my illegal pool was a death trap. I blinked, glanced at my calm, ripple-free pond, and asked an officer, "You mean the pond?" He didn't respond, just signaled for backup like I'd rigged the catfish with explosives. What Karen didn't know, what she never even considered, was that my pond wasn't for swimming or sunbathing. It was a federally designated emergency reservoir tied to the state's drought mitigation system, complete with reinforced valves, buried telemetry cables, camouflaged pumps, and National Guard oversight. To her, it was just an eyesore clashing with her HOA aesthetic. 3 days earlier, I was doing routine maintenance, tightening locks on the intake panel, checking underground feed lines, as part of my agreement with the guard. It's not glamorous, but that pond, looking like a glorified mud hole, can move thousands of gallons an hour during wildfires or droughts. Most folks don't know what it is, and I prefer it that way. But Karen, who moved into the cul-de-sac last year, made it her mission to police whispering cedars. Within her first month, she filed a noise complaint against my cows for aggressive mooing and tried to deem my windmill a visual disruption. Then she fixated on the pond, showing up one morning in yoga pants, clipboard in hand, with a mug of tea that reeked like microwaved potpourri. "This is a violation," she declared, citing no fencing, no signage, and risks to ducks, kids, and dogs. I explained it's state-monitored infrastructure, not a public pool, but she demanded a fence or she'd escalate it to the HOA board. I didn't comply, so she did. 2 days later, I got a hand-delivered citation, gold gel pen, fake HOA letterhead, and a $2 late fee payable to her Venmo. I forwarded it to Brandon, my guard contact, and tossed it into the firewood pile. The next morning, Karen was camped out in a lawn chair by my property line, binoculars in one hand, notepad in the other, muttering every time a duck landed. By noon, she yelled that my goat was too close to open water. I shouted back, "Tell the goat, he's bad with rules." That night, a drone buzzed over my land, and soon after, I got an email with blurry photos captioned "Potential drowning risk" and "Unauthorized aquatic feature." Karen was escalating. Brandon offered to send someone, but I said, "Not yet." I wanted to see how far she'd go. The next morning, she called 911, claiming unattended kids were playing in a dangerous swimming facility. The sheriff's office arrived, lights flashing, radios crackling. Karen, in full makeup and a wide-brimmed hat, ranted about livestock and wildlife in a public danger zone. A deputy asked if it was my property. I nodded and explained the pond's federal status, pointing to a placard by the goat. Karen scoffed, calling me a pond hoarder. But the deputy read the placard, U.S. Department of Defense Infrastructure, Access Point 7A, and she froze. I offered maintenance logs and a hotline to the guard lieutenant. They left. Karen didn't. She tried the city next, sending 2 inspectors with clipboards. I handed them a folder of federal documents, photos, and exemptions. They exchanged glances, said, "This is above our pay grade," and left. Then Monroe, the guard's legal counsel, met with zoning and delivered an exemption letter locking out the city and HOA. Karen switched tactics, staging a protest with hand-painted signs, folding tables, and neighbors holding "Keep Kids Safe" posters, blaring a PA system about toxins, militarized water, and government secrets under my pond. I stayed quiet, but the local news showed up. Karen gave a theatrical performance. Then they asked me. By my fence, I pointed to her signs and said, "This is emergency infrastructure. If folks are mad the government's preparing for droughts, they should rethink their priorities." That night, Brandon's TV interview clarified everything, hinting that interference could bring criminal charges. By morning, the protest vanished, leaving Karen's milk crate like a forgotten prop. But she wasn't done. At 6 a.m., her SUV rolled up with a tow truck and a man in a blazer shouting about seizing unauthorized government equipment. Karen accused me of theft, sabotage, even treason. I called Brandon, who told me to film it all. 10 minutes later, unmarked government vehicles swarmed in, detaining the blazer guy while Karen's bravado cracked. They warned her, one more stunt, and she'd face federal charges. That evening, I requested a mobile deterrent system, reinforced trailer, night vision surveillance, perimeter alarms, and a giant federal property trespassers prosecuted sign. Karen claimed it was a listening station, sparking HOA group chat hysteria about satellite dishes spying on hot tub parties. A neighbor suggested apologizing. Karen called them traitors. Then, at 4:30 a.m., my alarms blared. Karen's SUV had crossed my grass. She leapt out, swinging a metal pipe at the mobile unit. Her first swing bounced off. The second clipped her leg. By the time I got outside, Humvees arrived, and she was arrested, screaming about surveillance and stolen water. That morning, my pond was quiet again. Birds chirped, leaves rustled. No drones or HOA snoops. But later, I got an unsigned letter, Karen's handwriting, rambling about sacred land and voices in the water, ending with, "You can't hear them, but I can." I filed it as evidence. The HOA built a 10-foot lattice fence, like a blindfold for the neighborhood. A neighbor suggested naming the pond. It deserved a plaque. That night, I sat by the water, radar at my feet, stars overhead, and exhaled deeply for the first time in weeks. Karen's gone for now, but people like her don't vanish. They slink into cracks, start over, dig sideways. Was she just a nuisance, or a mirror for how far some will go to control what they don't understand? The real fight isn't over land. It's about who decides what's normal. What do you think? Share your take below.